Welcome back to the Suburban Ford 7 Sportscape. Time for our final thoughts of the day. Rod, as the veteran, you get to start.
As objective sports writers, we don't often get to cheer for sports teams, and sometimes it's hard to have a favorite sports team or even a favorite sports figure. Even one of the biggest sports events of the year couldn't bring out the fan in some people because of the politics in last night's Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao fight. Of course, the Mayweather won in typical Mayweather fashion, improving to 48-0, one off tying Rocky Marciano's undefeated mark. But the flow of the fight was marred by the lack of punching, the running, and while boxing purists might say that's what Mayweather needed to do to win, the bout certainly didn't live up to the standard of the great fights of our generation. Add to that the disappointment of the controversy about Mayweather's camp banning reporters Michelle Beadle and Rachel Nichols, presumably for questioning Mayweather's checkered past of domestic violence. And it was hard to walk away from the fight feeling good at all. Mayweather addressed the domestic violence question after the fight, saying only God could judge him for his transgressions. You're right, Floyd, when you say the media can't judge you, but we certainly have the right to ask the questions.
Very good point, Rod. Absolutely shouldn't have kept those two female journalists from joining. Josh?
Yeah, and sticking with some character issues, over the last few years, the Seattle Seahawks have been one of the most successful teams in the NFL, but after drafting former Michigan defensive end Frank Clark in the second round Friday, they proved yet again that off-field issues simply don't matter to them. Down the road, I'm really curious to see just how this burgeoning dynasty is remembered, because the Seahawks are one of the most physical, hard-hitting teams in recent memory, and an incredibly talented bunch with role models like Russell Wilson and Richard Sherman. But they also have several players with a checkered past, performance-enhancing drug use, marijuana use, and now they have an alleged woman beater by making him a second-round pick and making Frank Clark the face of their draft class because they didn't have a first-round pick. Clark is just 21 years old, so he has plenty of growing up to do, and perhaps this incident will become a learning experience. But when you draft a player in the second round, you're sending a message to your team and your fans that off-field issues don't matter if a player can run, jump, and tackle well. Many draft decisions are a balance of risk and reward. Lately, the Seahawks have been rewarded for taking players with character issues, but at some point, those risks could come back to bite them.
Very good, Josh. Appreciate that thought. Mine is hopefully not as soapboxy, but spring is officially sprung here in Metro Detroit. Beautiful weekend to help start many of the communities around Metro Detroit kick off those Little League seasons. And I cannot speak from experience because I don't have kids, but I have plenty of friends who give their time, extra hours, and efforts to make sure that your kids find enjoyment in America's pastime and get off to a good start to many of these kids' athletic pilgrimages. Now, I'm not here to wag a finger or slap a wrist, but as parents and guardians of these kids, be mindful that human element still exists in the game. The umpire for little Bobby's game, likely a college student or high school kid, just trying to make a couple extra bucks. He stands out there in long pants and equipments just for that extra little bit of money. And your kid's not going to make the league at 7 years old, so don't try to treat these officials and organizers like the game itself matters. And if your child and every other child has a good time, plays their hardest, and learns what teamwork's all about, everyone's a winner. That's the show. Bye-bye.